The diamond on my finger was a promise, a meticulously planned future, until a single conversation revealed it was nothing more than a tool of manipulation. That night, 5 years of dreams and one heirloom met my garbage disposal. The ring on my finger felt like a promise, not just a promise of love, but of a future I'd been meticulously building, spreadsheet by spreadsheet, for the last 5 years. Mark was everything I thought I wanted. He was charming, with a smile that could disarm a bomb and a laugh that made my heart feel like it was doing somersaults. We were going to build a life together, starting with the perfect little house with a blue door just outside the city. That blue door was my North Star, the image I held in my mind every time I said no to a fancy dinner, a weekend getaway, or a new pair of shoes I didn't really need. My savings account was my proudest achievement, $30,000. Every single cent of it earned through late nights at my graphic design job, countless freelance gigs that had me mainlining coffee at 3 a.m., and a level of frugality my friends found both admirable and slightly insane. This wasn't family money or a lucky break. It was my sweat, my discipline, my sacrifice. And Mark knew it. He'd often kiss my forehead and call me his little powerhouse, praising my dedication to our future. Our future. That was the key word. His mother, Brenda, was a presence. From the moment Mark introduced us, she treated me with a kind of cloying sweetness that felt like being wrapped in sticky candy floss. She called me sweetheart and darling, but her eyes always seemed to be performing a detailed financial audit. She'd compliment my handbag, then immediately ask where I got it and sigh dramatically about how she could never afford nice things. Mark would just chuckle and wrap an arm around her, saying, "Mom, you deserve the world." He was fiercely protective of her, explaining that his father had left them with nothing but debt, and she'd worked her fingers to the bone to raise him. I respected that. I truly did. But there was a difference between respecting a struggle and funding a lifestyle of learned helplessness. The first crack in our perfect picture appeared on a Tuesday. Mark came home from his weekly dinner with Brenda looking unusually animated. He was practically vibrating with excitement. He grabbed me by the waist, spun me around the kitchen, and kissed me deeply. "Babe, I have the most incredible news," he said, his eyes shining. "Mom has found the opportunity of a lifetime. It's going to change everything for her." I smiled cautiously. "Oh? What is it?" "It's this amazing wellness company," he explained, pulling out a glossy brochure from his jacket. It was covered in pictures of smiling women holding pastel-colored bottles. It's all about essential oils and wellness powders. It's not just selling stuff. It's about building a team, creating a downline. The woman who introduced her to it is driving a pink Cadillac, paid for by the company. My heart sank. A pink Cadillac. The universal sign for a multi-level marketing scheme. I'd seen enough friends get burned by these opportunities to know exactly what this was. A money pit disguised as a business. "Mark, honey," I started gently, "those things can be really risky. Most people don't actually make money, He waved his hand dismissively. No, this one is different. It's brand new, a ground floor opportunity. The only problem is the initial investment for the Diamond Founders kit. It's the best one. It sets you up for success right away. But it's a little steep." I held my breath. How steep? He looked at the ceiling, then at his shoes, then finally at me. His charming smile was back, but it looked a little strained. $25,000. I almost choked on my own spit. $25,000. Mark, that's an insane amount of money. Where is Brenda going to get that? He took my hands in his, squeezing them. His expression turned earnest, pleading. Well, that's the thing. I was thinking we could help her. From the house fund. The air left my lungs. It was as if he'd suggested we set fire to our blueprints for the fun of it. What? No, Mark, absolutely not. That money is for our down payment. It's for the house with the blue door. It's for us. His smile vanished completely. His grip on my hands tightened, not in a comforting way, but in a controlling one. "Babe, come on, it's an investment. She'll pay us back, probably double, within a year. Think about it. We could get an even bigger house." "No," I said, pulling my hands away. My voice was firm, colder than I intended. "That money is not to be touched. It took me 5 years to save that. We are not gambling our future on your mom's get-rich-quick scheme." The shift in his demeanor was terrifying. The charming, loving man I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger with hard eyes and a cruel set to his mouth. He scoffed, a short, ugly sound. "My mom's scheme? You think you're so much smarter than everyone, don't you? She's had a hard life. She deserves a break. I can't believe how selfish you're being." "Selfish?" I was incredulous. "I'm being responsible. That's our down payment. It's half mine, half yours. Well, actually, it's mostly mine, and you know it." It was a low blow, but it was true. He was a sales rep with an inconsistent income and a taste for expensive gadgets. I was the saver. I was the planner. I was the one who had secured our future. His face flushed, a deep, angry red. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a low, menacing hiss that I had never heard before. "It doesn't matter whose name is on the account. We are supposed to be a team, a family. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? We're not even married yet, and you already act so shameless, hoarding money like some kind of greedy dragon." The word shameless struck me like a slap in the face. It was what his mother had called a cousin who refused to co-sign a loan for her. It was a weapon designed to inflict maximum guilt. I just stared at him, my mind reeling, trying to process this monstrous transformation. The man who had put a ring on my finger just 3 months ago was now looking at me with pure contempt. I can't believe you just said that to me," I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. He didn't back down. Instead, a smug, cruel smirk spread across his lips. He crossed his arms, looking down at me as if I were a naughty child. "You have to understand, babe," he said, his tone dripping with condescending poison. "This isn't really a request. The decision has already been made. I already told her she could count on us. I promised her the money this evening." The words hung in the air between us, thick and poisonous. "You promised her." I repeated it, my voice barely a whisper. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of pure, unadulterated shock. My mind was scrambling, trying to connect this sneering, arrogant stranger to the man who just this morning had left a little note by the coffee maker that said, "Have a great day, future Mrs. Davis." "Of course I did," he snapped, puffing out his chest. "She's my mother. When she's in need, I help her. That's what a good son does. That's what a family does." "By giving away money that isn't yours?" My voice started to rise, fueled by a terrifying cocktail of anger and hurt. "Money that I worked for? That I lost sleep over? You had no right, Mark. No right to make a promise like that without even speaking to me." "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I didn't realize I had to ask for your permission to help my own mother. I thought we were a partnership. I guess that only applies when it's convenient for you and your precious savings account." He started pacing the kitchen, running his hands through his hair like he was the one being victimized. "You don't get it. You never will. You had this perfect little life, a stable family. You don't know what it's like to watch your mother cry because she can't afford to fix the car. You don't know what it feels like to be completely helpless." The emotional blackmail was so blatant, so textbook, it was almost insulting. He was trying to wield his mother's past struggles like a cudgel to beat me into submission. But it wasn't working. All I could see was our future dissolving into a haze of floral-scented pyramid scheme debt. "This isn't helping her, Mark. It's enabling her," I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. "You're throwing our future into a financial black hole. $25,000 for what? A box of oils and a pipe dream? Do you have any idea how long it will take to save that again?" "It's an investment," he roared, slamming his hand down on the kitchen counter. The coffee cups rattled in their saucers. "Why can't you get that through your thick, stubborn skull? You're so obsessed with risk you can't see the opportunity right in front of you. This is our chance to get ahead, to really build something." "Our chance? Or your mom's?" I asked quietly. The anger was starting to cool, replaced by a chilling clarity. The man I was going to marry saw my life savings as a slush fund for his mother's whims. My hard work wasn't a contribution to our future. It was a resource to be plundered for his family. The we and us he'd always talked about apparently had silent terms and conditions I was only now discovering. He must have seen the shift in my expression, the hardening of my resolve, because his tactics changed. The anger melted away, replaced by that pleading, charming look he was so good at. He closed the distance between us, trying to take my hands again. I flinched away. "Baby, please," he said softly, his voice full of feigned remorse. "I'm sorry I yelled. I'm so stressed. I just want to see her happy for once. Please, don't do this to me. Don't make me go back on my word to her. It would break her heart." He was looking at me with those big brown eyes that had made me fall for him in the first place. But for the first time, they looked hollow. All I could see was the calculation behind them. As he was speaking, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, and a flicker of panic crossed his face before he smoothed it over with another smile. "We need to sort this out now," he urged. "There's nothing to sort out," I said, my voice flat. "The answer is no. You can call your mother and tell her you made a mistake. Tell her you spoke out of turn. Tell her whatever you want, but that money is not leaving my account." A vein pulsed in his forehead. "You are being unbelievably cruel." Just then, his phone rang. The screen lit up with a picture of a smiling Brenda. Before I could react, Mark snatched it up and hit the speakerphone button, a triumphant, malicious gleam in his eye. "Hi, sweetie." Brenda's chirpy voice filled the tense silence of our kitchen. "I was just calling to see when would be a good time to pop over. I want to thank my wonderful future daughter-in-law in person for this incredible gift. I'm just so overwhelmed. I've already been looking at the color swatches for my new Cadillac." I stared at Mark, my blood turning to ice. This was his checkmate. He had engineered it perfectly. He had put me in an impossible position. Either I became the monster who crushed his mother's dreams, right here, right now, or I surrendered the future I had spent 5 years of my life building. He was smiling at me, a smug, possessive smile that said, "Gotcha." My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, but on the outside, I felt a strange calm descend. It was the calm of a ship's captain in a storm, when panic is a luxury you can't afford. I looked at the man I thought I knew, at the ugly, manipulative trap he had so carefully laid for me. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. I took a deep breath, plastered a bright, sweet smile on my face, and stepped closer to the phone. "Brenda, it's so lovely to hear from you," I said, my voice as sugary as her personality. "Of course. Mark and I were just sorting out the details. We're so thrilled for you." Mark's smug smile widened. He thought I had caved. Brenda squealed with delight on the other end of the line. "Just give us one moment to get the transfer set up, okay?" I continued, my eyes locked on Mark's. I held his gaze as I walked over to my laptop on the kitchen island and flipped open the screen. He watched me, looking victorious, like a king surveying his conquered territory. He had no idea he wasn't a king. He was just the court jester in a tragedy of his own making. I logged into my bank, my fingers flying across the keyboard, the page with my $30,000 savings account loaded. Then, with Mark watching my every move, I clicked on a different tab, not the transfer funds tab. I opened a new browser window and typed in the name of the best divorce lawyer in the city. The air in the kitchen crackled. Mark's triumphant smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion as he watched my fingers move across the keyboard. He couldn't see the screen clearly from where he stood, but he could see I wasn't on the banking app's transfer page anymore. On the phone, Brenda was still bubbling over with excitement. "Oh, take all the time you need, sweetheart," she chirped. "I'm just so grateful. You know, Mark always said you were a sensible girl with a good head on her shoulders. I knew you'd see what a golden opportunity this is. I can finally stop worrying about every little bill." Her words were like gasoline on the fire now raging inside me. A sensible girl, a good head on her shoulders. To them, that didn't mean I was intelligent or responsible. It meant I was a cash cow, a walking ATM ready to fund their fantasies. My good head was only good for accumulating money they felt entitled to spend. I kept my voice light and steady, a feat of acting that deserved an award. "Of course, Brenda. Family helps family, right? That's what Mark always says." I glanced up at him, and my sweet smile was a mask for the ice-cold fury beneath. His confusion was now morphing into suspicion. He started to take a step towards me, to peer over my shoulder. "Wait, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice low and suspicious. "Just sorting things out, honey," I cooed, deliberately angling the laptop screen away from him. I found the law firm's website and clicked on their Schedule a Consultation link. A calendar popped up. I selected the first available slot, 9 a.m. the next morning. "What is that? What are you looking at?" Mark demanded, his voice rising in panic. He clearly heard the change in my tone, the dangerous edge to my sweetness. Brenda, on the other hand, was oblivious. "Is everything all right over there, kids?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of concern. "Everything's perfect, Brenda," I said brightly. I minimized the lawyer's website and quickly navigated to my banking portal. I brought up the savings account, the beautiful round number of $30,000 glowing on the screen. Mark craned his neck, a wave of relief washing over his face as he saw the familiar numbers. He thought I was finally coming to my senses. He thought his little trap had worked. "We just need to move a few things around to make it happen," I said, my voice now taking on a business-like tone. My eyes met Mark's over the screen. "You see, Mark, my savings account is what's called a high-yield account. It's for long-term goals. To access a large sum, like, say, $25,000, I have to transfer it to my checking account first. It's a security measure." This was, of course, a complete lie, but he didn't know that. He just saw me actively engaging with the bank account and assumed he had won. He puffed his chest out again, that arrogant smirk returning. "See, Mom, I told you she'd understand," he said into the phone, his voice smug. "She just needed a minute to process the big picture." "Oh, I'm so proud of you both for working as a team," Brenda gushed. "Teamwork makes the dream work," I said, my voice dripping with an irony so thick he could have choked on it. I initiated a transfer, but not for $25,000. I selected the option to transfer the entire balance, all $30,000, and I didn't move it to my primary checking account, the one we shared for household bills. I moved it to a secondary personal checking account that he didn't even know existed, an emergency account I'd set up years ago, my escape fund, as I jokingly called it to myself. I never thought I'd actually have to use it. The transfer was instantaneous. The savings account, our house fund, now showed a balance of €0. "There," I said, snapping the laptop shut with a decisive click. "All done." Mark beamed. "Great. So, you can send it to Mom's account now?" "Oh, no, I can't do that," I said calmly, turning to face him. I leaned back against the counter, crossing my arms. The mask was off. My face was a cold, hard stone. His smile vanished. "What? What do you mean you can't do that? You just moved the money." "I did," I confirmed. "I moved my money into my private account, an account that you have no access to and will never see a dime of." On the phone, Brenda's voice piped up, tinny and confused. "What's going on? Honey, is there a problem with the bank?" Mark ignored her. His face was a thundercloud of rage and disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about? Are you insane? You can't do that. That's our money." "No, Mark," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "It was never our money. It was my money, which I was generous enough to earmark for a future with you, a future that, as of about 10 minutes ago, no longer exists. You promised your mother my money. You tried to shame and manipulate me. You put me on speakerphone with her to trap me. You called me shameless." I took a step towards him, my eyes boring into his. "You want to see Shameless? This is Shameless." I reached up, and with a swift, decisive twist, I pulled the diamond ring off my finger. It wasn't a huge diamond, but it was beautiful. It had represented everything I'd hoped for. Now, it represented a lie. I held it between my thumb and forefinger. "You and your mother seem to believe in high-risk, high-reward investments," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "So here's one for you." I looked him dead in the eye, and then I turned and walked calmly over to the kitchen sink, where the garbage disposal's dark, ominous maw was waiting. He watched, his face a mask of horror, realizing what I was about to do. "Don't you dare," he breathed, his voice a strangled whisper. Brenda was babbling frantically on the phone. Mark, what is she doing? Tell me what's happening." I held the ring over the drain, the small diamond catching the light one last time. I could hear Mark starting to lunge towards me, a guttural roar building in his throat. But he was too far away. With a flick of my wrist, I let it go. The ring made a tiny, almost insignificant clink as it hit the metal blades deep within the garbage disposal. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Mark froze mid-lunge, his face a grotesque canvas of shock and fury. Brenda's frantic squawking from the phone on the counter was the only sound in the room. Then, with a chilling deliberation that I didn't know I possessed, I reached over, my hand steady, and flipped the switch on the wall. The roar of the disposal was deafening, a violent grinding shriek that filled the kitchen and vibrated through the floor. It was the sound of 5 years of shared dreams, inside jokes, and carefully laid plans being pulverized into dust. I watched Mark's face, not the drain. His expression crumpled. The smugness, the anger, the entitlement. It all evaporated, replaced by a raw, guttural cry of disbelief. He looked at the sink as if I had just thrown his own heart in there. The grinding sound went on for only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I flipped the switch off, and the sudden, profound silence was even more jarring than the noise. You didn't," he stammered, his voice cracking. He stumbled towards the sink, peering into the drain as if he could somehow magically reassemble the pieces. "You crazy... You actually did it." From the phone, Brenda was screaming now. "Mark, what was that noise? What did she do? Mark, answer me!" I walked over to the counter, picked up his phone, and calmly switched off the speaker. I held it out to him. "You should probably talk to your mother," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "Tell her there's been a change of plans regarding her investment." He snatched the phone from my hand, his eyes wild. He held it to his ear, turning away from me. "Mom, calm down. No, everything is... Just calm down. I'll call you back." He ended the call, his hand shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes was pure hatred. "That was a 2-carat diamond," he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. "My grandmother's diamond. Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "Yes," I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I've disposed of an object that was given to me under false pretenses. It was a symbol of a partnership, of a shared future. You proved tonight that neither of those things ever really existed. So the symbol is meaningless. It's just a rock, and now it's gravel. You're going to pay for this," he snarled, taking a menacing step towards me. "You owe me for that ring. You owe my mother for the emotional distress you've caused." I let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a brittle, ugly sound. "Owe you? Owe her? Let's get something crystal clear, Mark. I don't owe you anything. Our relationship is over. Our engagement is over. And you will be out of my apartment by the end of the night." His jaw dropped. "Your apartment? This is our apartment. We signed the lease together." "No. I signed the lease before you moved in," I corrected him. "You were added as a resident. You are not on the primary lease. I checked this morning, right after I checked for divorce lawyers. You have no legal right to be here if I ask you to leave. And I am asking, get out." The color drained from his face. He looked around the living room at the comfortable sofa we'd picked out together, the art on the walls I'd so carefully chosen, the life I had built and graciously allowed him to be a part of. He was finally realizing the full scope of his miscalculation. He hadn't just lost a potential payday for his mother. He had lost his home. "You can't be serious," he whispered, his bravado crumbling into desperation. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I hear Brenda has a wonderful ground floor opportunity," I said, my voice dripping with saccharine sarcasm. "Perhaps you can sleep on boxes of essential oils. I'm sure they smell lovely." That was it. The final shred of his composure snapped. He let out a roar of pure rage and lunged, not at me, but at the kitchen island where my laptop still sat. He grabbed it, held it high above his head, and for a terrifying second, I thought he was going to smash it against the floor. "If I'm leaving, I'm not leaving empty-handed," he bellowed. "This is a company laptop. I'll sell it. It's the least you owe me." He was wrong. It was my personal laptop, worth thousands of dollars, filled with my freelance work, my entire portfolio, my life. But in his blind fury, he didn't care. He saw it as something of value, something he could take to punish me. He turned and bolted for the front door, clutching the laptop like a football. "Mark, don't you dare!" I screamed, running after him. He fumbled with the deadbolt, his hands still shaking. He wrenched the door open and sprinted out into the hallway of the apartment building. I was right behind him, my heart pounding with adrenaline. "Give it back, that's my property," I yelled, my voice echoing in the empty hall. He didn't stop. He was heading for the emergency stairwell at the end of the corridor. He was faster than me, and I knew I couldn't catch him. Panic seized me. He was going to get away with it. He was going to steal the one thing that represented my professional independence, the tool of my livelihood. Then, just as he reached the stairwell door, another door down the hall opened. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a retired police officer with a permanent scowl and 2 yappy chihuahuas, stepped out. He was holding a leash in each hand, and he took in the scene in an instant. Me, frantic and yelling, and Mark fleeing with my laptop. Mark shoved past him, pushing the heavy fire door open. Without a moment's hesitation, Mr. Henderson dropped the leashes. "Hey!" he boomed, his old cop voice cutting through the air like a siren. "You, stop right there!" And then, to my utter astonishment, he let out a sharp, piercing whistle. From his open apartment door, a blur of fur and muscle exploded into the hallway. It wasn't one of the chihuahuas. It was a massive German shepherd I had only ever seen on a tight leash, a retired K9 unit dog named Zeus that Mr. Henderson occasionally dog-sat for his son. And Zeus was heading straight for Mark. Zeus moved with the kind of fluid, terrifying speed that is bred for a purpose. He wasn't barking. He was a silent 80-pound missile of focused intent. Mark, halfway through the stairwell door, glanced back at the sound of Mr. Henderson's whistle. His eyes widened in pure terror as he saw the German shepherd closing the distance in a matter of seconds. He let out a yelp, a pathetic, high-pitched sound, and tried to slam the heavy fire door shut. He was too slow. Zeus hit the door with a solid thud, but not before he'd latched his powerful jaws onto the one thing he could reach, the corner of my laptop that Mark was still clutching. There was a sickening crunch of plastic and metal. Mark screamed, not in pain, but in sheer panic, trying to pull the laptop free. It was a tug of war he was never going to win. Zeus planted his feet, growled low in his chest, and yanked backwards with the full force of his body. The laptop was wrenched from Mark's grasp. It flew through the air, spinning end over end, before crashing onto the tiled hallway floor with a final, heartbreaking crack. The screen spiderwebbed into a million pieces. Mark, thrown off balance by the sudden release, stumbled backwards into the stairwell and tumbled down the first few steps with a loud, undignified clatter. Mr. Henderson was already moving, his retired cop instincts on full display. "Zeus, heel, drop it!" he commanded. The dog immediately released the mangled laptop and trotted back to his side, looking immensely proud of himself. The 2 chihuahuas, finally free, ran up to the scene, yapping hysterically at the drama. I just stood there, breathless, staring at the wreckage of my laptop, then at Mark, who was groaning at the bottom of the stairs, clutching a twisted ankle. The whole chaotic scene felt surreal, like something out of a movie. "You all right, miss?" Mr. Henderson asked, his gruff voice cutting through my shock. I think so," I stammered, walking slowly towards my ruined computer. I knelt down, my heart sinking as I saw the extent of the damage. The case was shattered. The screen was destroyed. It was a total loss. But as I looked at it, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It was just a thing, an expensive, important thing, but replaceable. What wasn't replaceable was my dignity, my future, and my peace of mind. And tonight I had saved all 3. Mark was trying to pick himself up, wincing in pain. "She's crazy," he yelled up at Mr. Henderson. "She attacked me. She destroyed my ring. I was leaving and she sent her dog after me." Mr. Henderson just raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Son, I've been a cop for 30 years. I know what a domestic dispute looks like, and I know what a thief running from a crime scene looks like. Right now, you look a whole lot more like the second one." He pulled out his phone. "Maybe we should call my old buddies down at the precinct and let them sort it out." The threat of police involvement was the final nail in Mark's coffin. The color drained from his face again. He knew he was caught. Attempted theft, a credible witness. His whole story would fall apart under the slightest scrutiny. "No," he mumbled, shaking his head. "No police." "That's what I thought," Mr. Henderson said grimly. "Now I suggest you get your things and leave this building, and I'd advise you not to come back." Limping heavily, Mark struggled back up the stairs. He shot me a look of pure venom, a look that promised retribution he would never be able to deliver. He didn't say another word. He hobbled back into the apartment, a defeated, pathetic figure. I followed him in, with Mr. Henderson and his canine entourage standing guard in the doorway. Mark moved with a sullen, frantic energy, throwing his clothes into a duffel bag, grabbing his toothbrush and his overpriced cologne. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. Every now and then, he would glance at the garbage disposal and a fresh wave of misery would wash over his face. He packed up his life in my apartment in under 10 minutes. When he was done, he limped to the door, bag in hand. He paused, finally looking at me. The hatred was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness. "Was it worth it?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "All of this? Over some money?" "It was never about the money, Mark," I said, my voice finally clear and strong. "It was about respect. You didn't respect me, my work, or our future. You saw me as a bank account to fund your mother's bad decisions. The money was just how I found out." He had no answer for that. He just stared at me for a moment longer, then turned and walked out of my life for good, limping down the hallway of shame. After he was gone, Mr. Henderson gave me a curt nod. "You let me know if he comes back." He and his dogs retreated into his apartment, and I was finally alone in the sudden, blessed silence. I spent the next hour cleaning up. I packed the last of Mark's things into a box to leave by the dumpster. I made a cup of tea, and then I did something I should have done 5 years ago. I opened a new spreadsheet. At the top, I didn't write house fund. I wrote my future. The $30,000 was still there, safe in my private account. Minus the cost of a new laptop, it was all mine. The down payment for a house wasn't gone, it was just repurposed. It was now a down payment for a life that belonged only to me. The next morning, I kept my 9 a.m. appointment with the lawyer, just to get advice on any potential loose ends. A few weeks later, I got a rambling, semi-coherent email from Brenda, full of accusations and Bible verses, demanding I pay for her emotional trauma and lost business opportunity. I forwarded it to my lawyer, who sent back a 1-sentence cease and desist letter. I never heard from either of them again. The blue door I had dreamed of is still out there, somewhere in my future, but I'm not in a rush anymore. I bought a new laptop, a better one. I took a solo trip to Italy that I'd always wanted to go on. And every time I turn on my garbage disposal, I smile. It's a bit of an expensive smile, sure, but it reminds me that some things are worth grinding into dust to make way for something new, something better, something entirely my own.